why don't we call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock? This is being recorded and Tamika is going to do the minutes from it, so we don't have to worry about that. So first order of business, let's tend to the minutes of November 4th. Does anybody have any, well, first of all, has everybody had a chance to review them?
Yes.
Yes.
Does anyone have any corrections or concerns?
Concerns? Well, yes, this is Rutland. Corrections? None.
What's that, Dick?
Corrections? None. Concerns? Yes.
All right, well, all right, I have one correction. On my page 2, which is the paragraph that starts with Dick also asked if the site. Does everybody see where I am? Hey, Jim.
Hi there.
So it says he's spoken with Joe Buckley, but he's unsure if we have the staff to get it done this fall. Then it says Mike suggested using some of the funds of the HCH revolving fund to pay someone to mow it. And if I said that, I misstated because we can't use the HCH funds to maintain the property. That should have been the RDIC funds. So I'm going to just ask that we strike HCH revolving fund and say suggested using some of the funds of the RDIC to pay someone to mow it. Anybody have any problems with that?
Oh,
Okay. The only other, well, okay, we can accept these minutes, then I'll make some comments. Anybody have any other questions? Concerns?
no.
Mike, do you know when they were sent to us? Because I can't,
They were sent with the agenda.
for today's meeting
Yeah,
from,
from Tamika.
Michelle, it was February 28th at 3:08 PM.
okay, thank you. Yeah, February 28th.
Yep.
So
I'm sorry, 18th. 18th.
I
We're not,
was gonna say, I'm not, okay. I got it.
You want to take a minute to scan them before we move on?
Yes, please.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what, while she's doing that,
Yeah.
Michelle, I'm sure you can just listen. and-
Yes, I'm fine with listening.
Okay. Where, with the part that I just discussed, if you go below that, there's a whole rest of that paragraph discuss the trying to recoup the costs of what we've spent so far on the HCH aspect of the project. I was anticipating that we should be able to go to HCH and get them to pay for that. I've since been told by, well, it started out with Attorney Campobasso, and I then confirmed it with our own attorney. Anything to do with the RFP process, until it becomes specifically, related to the HCH itself. In other words, the development of the RDI, of the mental block.
Aren't they, Mike, aren't they in that? Because we were in the preliminary plan, which is past the RFP, right?
Yeah, okay, thank you, Tim. You just reminded me of the initials. I couldn't come up with the RFP. But much of the expenses that have been incurred have been deliberation over the wording and the process of the RFP itself. And that is a town responsibility, not an HCH responsibility. So I've gone around and around with both our attorney and Campobasso, and that's the end result of it. So those funds are going to have to come out of our account. You know, we can use the down payment of, I think it was $2,500 that we got when they submitted their preliminary plan for other things that are related to that. And then well, we'll get to this in a little bit, when we start actually spending money, for instance, for engineering reviews and so on, we can then, as the planning board does, go back to HCH and say, hey, you know, our professional consultants, you know, here's the cost of those, and they will have to pay those. So that was one point I wanted to make. And then in the next to last paragraph, just a point of information. Well, I guess it's further on in our agenda, so I'll just leave it at that. So Michelle, are you okay now, or?
Yes, I am. I had a chance to look them over. My only other question though is about the paying for because I had put in there, I think DPW should cover the cost of like mowing the lawn and stuff. Have we asked DPW to do it?
I have not specifically done that. I guess I probably should, and I will.
Okay. And if you want me to, I could do that this week.
Would you?
I know, Michelle, just to give you a heads up, we can ask them. But I know based upon their staff and what they have available, we'll probably get put on a schedule if it's possible. Because
Right.
Dick's shaking it. Dick knows what I know is that they haven't even been able to mow the soccer fields over at the Memorial Field. The fire brigade had to do that for the food truck because they just didn't have the staff or the time to do it. So I just want to let you guys know that's what I've been finding out over the last 12 months is monies and staff. Joe's been really tight on. But it doesn't hurt.
Michelle's point, though, is not so much the staff. It's since we
Hey.
contracted, you know, since someone did the work, should they pony up money to pay that individual to do that as a contractor?
Oh, I thought we were asking the DPW to mow it as part of their
Well,
requirement.
we were, but they, to your point, you know, I talked to Joe 3 or 4 times throughout the course of the summer, and I got, you know, a very similar answer to your comment. Hey, look, Mike, you know, I've got 3 guys and, you know, we're doing this, that, and the other thing. It's on my list. I don't know whether we'll get to it. Well, we had to get to it. So we had some guy generous enough to volunteer his time, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be able to ask for some sort of reimbursement there.
Oh, I agree. I just wanted you guys, Mike and Michelle, you already, I guess, knew. I had heard that, and after what happened this summer, I'm going like, it isn't going to get any better. It's going to get worse, if anything.
Right.
No, but the point is, Tim, and I think this is one thing that we lose sight of with budgets, is that we still have to ask, because it's about the unmet needs too, right? So if the DPW can't do it, Joe can say, you know, I have all these people asking for services that we can't provide because we don't have enough staff. It gives Joe the reason at town meeting or in finance committee meetings to say, this is why I need money and more money in my budget, right? But if we don't ask and everybody just kind of keeps sucking it up, we're never going to get those services back.
Oh, I agree. And I know from just talking to Joe, he's got a list of what I can't do and what I need money for.
Yeah. And so I think if we just put it out there, and if this is gonna, you know, if it impacts the ability to sell the property, I think then it becomes a problem. Either we get it in our budget or you know, the town has a choice. They put it in our budget or they put it in their budget, but someone's got to pay for this mowing. It's not just going to happen on its own.
Can we do something? Can we accept the minutes and then we can continue the discussion as long as you want?
Yeah.
So can we get a motion on the minutes?
Make a motion with corrections for November 4th minutes.
For a second?
I second them.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Roll call.
Yeah.
It's unanimous.
No, I think you have to do a roll call because we're online.
Okay.
Bonnie, aye.
Dick Williams, aye.
Susie, aye.
Narwhal, aye.
Van Ree, aye.
Sullivan, aye. So it's unanimous.
Yes.
Hey, Jim, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Where are you?
Yeah, where are you?
That's that same question.
He's in Florida. I can tell the trees.
Well, I can tell that too, because it's way too light there to be in Massachusetts.
I like his office chair.
I've been here since beginning of January.
Okay. All
Way
right,
down
sorry,
the-
I didn't mean
way
to
down
put you
the
on the
keys.
spot there.
Not coming back.
Good for you.
Are
Okay,
you in
any
the-
further discussion on the mowing and money and so on? I didn't mean to cut that discussion off. I just,
No. I agree with Michelle. We got to ask. And if they say no, they say no, but at least we ask.
Dick, can I ask a question? The dump site, did they mow that or did you mow that?
They mowed it.
Okay, so they did do what they were, what we're obligated or we're required by the state to do every 2 years.
Correct.
Okay. All right, so motions, the minutes are accepted. New and old business. The reason we're basically having this meeting is because of the 61A on Ridge Road. We are one of the boards that gets asked before something is taken out of 61A, whether we have any interest in it. So I asked Tamika to poll the committee to see whether they thought it was necessary to have a meeting, and there was enough interest that I thought we should. Let's just make one thing clear, though. Our discussion should be focused on, does the RDIC see a need, not necessarily for the town specifically, but does the RDIC have a use for the property? It's up to the, go ahead.
We're getting kicked out of the Rutland Heights, and we're going to be homeless. So where are we going?
I guess I'm,
Just joking.
oh, okay. I was gonna say, you kind of lost me on that one. So.
I'm following him.
I
I'm
know,
following you,
Jim,
Dick.
you were pretty clear in wanting to discuss this, and I think Dick, you were too, and I think you were too, Bonnie. So why don't you folks chime in and let's see where we go.
Mike, the only thing I think that we need to do at this time, since it's a conversion, is decide if we're interested, and a letter to the select board to go through the what is that? The appraisal process, and then it's sort of out of our, what's the word, bailiwick, and it's up to the select board for the negotiations and all of that. But because it's not a purchase, or it's not taking it out of 61A, it's converting it. There's a completely different process that they have to go through. And one of them that I just asked an email out that I found online is I think there's supposed to be a public hearing held for a conversion. So again, that's something that I'm asking from, I sent it to the select board and to David is that a correct interpretation? But my point is that it's 50 acres, and to Dick's is that I think it's an opportune piece of property on the edge of town that the RDIC could use for its, expansion, development, something along that line, since a lot of property is being taken off the board with Harbor Classic Homes.
There are different things that could happen with it. The DPW was looking for a place for composting, for tree plantation.
Or have DPW actually move out there, and it frees up the space downtown for something else.
Or Mike, 50 acres is a nice large place for a Woo Sox training camp or something along those lines.
Has the Economic Development Commission been asked about this?
They're not on the official, Bonnie, they're not on the select board could ask him, but there's 3 or 4 requirements in state law and mass general law that the select board has to go to. The Economic Development Committee is not one of them that has to be tasked. Can they? Yes, but it's not required.
And honestly, I think that, yeah, I'll keep my opinion to myself about that.
Michelle,
go ahead,
thinking like
let it
me.
rip.
Well, yeah, the Economic Development Committee should have never been founded in the first place. We already have a Development Industrial Commission. And that was a political move, and I just don't agree that we need two different committees in town spinning their wheels doing the same thing when there's plenty to do. There's a lot of business in town to take care of, and I think having 2 committees was reckless and not appropriate, but that's my personal opinion. Anyway. So yes, I think if we can find other resources, I think we should take it on as the RDIC, because it is part of our job and our purview.
One of the things that really bother me, I believe this is, I think, the second parcel of land that Randy has lost that he uses for, growing corn. So I hate seeing it. He's the only dairy farmer in the whole area, and I hate to see him keep losing stuff.
Isn't that whole piece of land in all woods? There's no farm there.
Yeah, no, it's a field there.
Oh,
On that
right,
side, on that
yeah.
side of the road, there is a field.
Yeah.
Would he be able to buy it if we don't do it through the 61A process?
No, not the way there, Michelle. There's been, again, this is my personal opinion. It's not the planning board and or the RDICs. There's been some shenanigans going on with A&R and property to run up pricing on this 61A, and it is what it is. It's legal. I'm not saying it isn't. There's just anyhow, it's my opinion, and I have a hard time with it because to me, it gives an advantage of people in 61A to hold on to it for 20 or 30 years, pay minimal taxes, and then pull it out and sell it for a large portion of money without paying taxes on it. I don't see that as legitimate, but that's, again, my personal opinion. So I see it as an opportunity for the town. I say, why not go for it? We lost out on the Davis property, and let's not lose another large swath of property, because my thought process is I don't care about this for now, for the next 5 years. I care about it for 10 or 20 years.
Yeah.
When we need a school or we need something, the RDIC might need to add something over there. I mean, it's to me, it's 50 acres is tough to walk away from when it's a potential for the town to use down the road.
I agree
Because
with
you
you,
gotta
Tim.
remember that our discussion has to be focused on, does the RDIC, not the town, does the RDIC see a use for that parcel? And you can see a use all you want, but is it reasonable to think that the RDIC has the wherewithal to purchase that from the developer, or from the owner, I should say, excuse me. I mean, we can sit here and say, yeah, it'd be a great place for, town offices and all that. Well, that's fine, but that's not for us to decide. That's for selectmen to decide, and capital improvement, all those folks should be considering that. We need to determine, as an RDIC, do we see a Rutland economic development opportunity there? And if we do, what is it? And how do we go about procuring the property? And the obvious answer to that is we can't. And I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly, but
Why not? We got $1.6 million coming in 4 or 5 months. Why don't we take money that we use for property to buy property?
okay. but you
I
did-
agree, because I think we could either develop it ourselves or use it for town needs down the road, like either way would work. But I think if we held on to it, that's a pretty big parcel for a big development project. That would not necessarily be building houses, but would bring in a tax revenue for the town.
It's off of a way that's being used to get to 190. There's a lot of traffic on Wachusett Street, an awful lot of traffic lately. And it's close to 68.
Yeah.
So it has some advantages. So
I'm not questioning whether there's any advantages. Well, let me ask the question this way. And Jim, I apologize. You're gonna get dragged into this. Do you think that property would be of more interest to the town than the Davis farm was?
I would 100% have to say no. It's in the wrong side
I'm
of
sorry,
town.
Jim, I didn't mean to ask you that question, but
That's okay.
Okay,
I would say no. It's in the wrong side of town. It's got no water. It's got no sewer. It's really got no value. I would say it has no value to the town. You couldn't put a school there. It doesn't have sewer and water. I would say no. I don't think that's a good spot to be buying a parcel of land for the town. That's my opinion. I have no interest in the land. Don't plan on building on it or anything like that. So I would say no.
okay.
but I would not throw it away because the way the federal and state government working like lately, they want to expand water and sewer like crazy. So get ready.
And I think it's an unfair question to ask about whether the town would want this land instead of Davis. I think the problem with the Davis property at the time was that we did not have the funding to pay for it. But now we actually have a revenue source that we could use to purchase it now. We're in a better financial position now to purchase this property than we were in purchasing the other property.
So
And
do you
Mike-
know,
oh, I'm sorry, Bonnie, go ahead.
so do you know if there's any other properties coming that might be available for purchase?
Not at this time.
No? Okay.
I know that everybody was a little bit up in arms when the big for sale sign was on Holbrook's property, but that was on the wrong piece of property.
Oh, is that what? I was wondering how it sold so fast.
It didn't sell. It's not going to sell.
No,
That's all. That's
That's-
all in DCR land. It's not going to go anywhere.
it's, yeah, a lot of wetlands involved, but anyways, and the sign was too big, so I filed a complaint about it.
I love it.
Mike, I guess all I was trying to do with this is generate an interest to get the process started, because the conversion process isn't 120 days. It's a 30-day appraisal and then back and forth. So, maybe this doesn't work out to us because the appraisal comes back and it can't be afforded. But I guess what I was trying to do was at least get the process started, because I
Yeah.
think from an RDIC perspective, for development, and again, I'm looking at 10, 20 years down the road. I'm not looking at 5 years down the road or even 2 years down the road. This would be a parcel that the RDIC could definitely use to expand, because to Jim's point, right now, there is no water and sewer over there. But in 10 or 20 years, will there be? I don't know. I have no idea. But I think at this point, forget the town, the RDIC, with what we're giving up, I shouldn't say giving up, what we've sold in Rutland Heights and what we have potential for that other swath to sell, we're not going to have a lot of marketable property left. And this would be, if you want to look at it from a real estate perspective, this would be a nice piece of real estate to add to our portfolio, I guess is a good way to say it.
But I think what you're gonna hear from the town fathers is should the town be in the landowning business, number one? I mean, that's part of the reason we've been pressured so hard to do something with the Rutland Heights property. And secondly, I guess if I were part of that decision-making process, I would be saying, okay, look, you got whatever, 10 acres of land on the Mosio side and, 2 or 3 acres on the other side that we already own. Why do we need more? We're not even using that yet. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to be a negative Nelly here. It's just the reality is, do you really think that the town fathers are going to take the money from the sale of the land and use it to buy more land that's out there, with no water and sewer?
If they don't, they're crazy, because
Right.
they're not making any more land. The big guy upstairs has stopped making land, and we don't have a lot of swaths left in Rutland for any type of future use. I mean, we're down to A&Rs on a lot of properties. There's not a lot of subdivisions left to build in Rutland. It's mainly A&Rs. So if they have that philosophy, I'm fine with that. I don't agree with it. The landowning standpoint, I think the town should. Most towns do have some type of land trust available. Rutland hasn't. I think it's wrong. I understand the financial aspect. I really do. We've been in a tough financial aspect for over a few decades, but I think this is an opportunity, not only with the RDIC, but we've got properties next to Dunkin' Donuts that's coming out, that's going in. I mean, now's the time to buy it while you have the money available, because the town hasn't had this opportunity with this type of monies in my 23 years living here. So again, all I'm asking is that we tell the select board, yes, go get an appraisal, and then let's see what happens.
Tim, you've mentioned a couple of times an appraisal and then the conversion.
Yes.
Pardon my ignorance. I don't want a 5-minute dissertation, but just a couple of minutes. Explain conversion and why an appraisal is needed.
61A, if say, and Jim, I'm sorry to drag you into this, but if Jim was developing this property and he was buying it from Zotley's, that would be considered a 61A purchase, which means the town has 120 days to negotiate with Zotley's to buy the property. When they don't sell it to a developer and they do what they call a 61A conversion, and again, this is my understanding, is there's supposed to be a public hearing. And then once that public hearing is done and the town says yes or no, if they say yes, the town has 30 days to get an appraisal on that property. They send that appraisal to the developer, or I'm sorry, to the owner. If the owner wants it and he thinks it's fair, he takes it. Then he has his appraisal as a second appraisal to come back. And then there's some negotiation. And then that all happens within the 120 days. But if the town doesn't exercise their 30-day appraisal process, that's sort of the end of their right of refusal for the 61A property in the conversion. Because there's two different types: purchasing 61, taking a piece of property out of 61A and converting it. So I hope I didn't confuse anybody. That's sort of a quick synopsis of what I've learned in the last couple of weeks.
Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah.
Can you check the waiting room? Someone's been trying to come in.
Oh, sure. Okay. All right. Okay. Yes. I just you got to give me a minute to figure out how to get back, because but just bear with me 1 second, whoever's waiting, if they can hear me, because I would like to print this so I don't have to go back and find it again. Okay, so that takes care of that. Okay, now I got to figure out waiting room. I don't see anybody in the waiting.
No, they hopped over to another meeting.
They what?
They hopped over to another meeting.
Okay.
So,
So they're
okay,
not there.
sorry. But just making sure no one
Well,
else
you
was
know-
waiting in there.
You know who that was, Michelle? I bet that was Ron.
It was Leah.
Oh, it was Leah. Okay.
Yeah.
I know Ron was going to go between a couple meetings. So Mike, that's a quick synopsis. I mean, it's rudimentary, but that's what I've learned and what I've read from KP Law going back and forth with their letters. I mean, David's on. If he wants to enhance my explanation, I'm more than willing to do it. Or
Well, let me ask this. Is the town, since there's 30 days to do this, let's just take that to the bank. There's 30 days to do this appraisal. Is the town right now out getting an appraisal?
I don't think they're waiting on the feedback to come in from the different boards if they want to proceed.
So the town fathers on their own obviously don't believe they should be out getting an appraisal. They're waiting for someone to kind of force feed it to them. Because I mean, if they thought, you know, and I'm going to use the selectmen, if the selectmen thought it had value, wouldn't they already be out getting an appraisal?
Good question. I don't know what their thought process is. I really don't.
Well, wouldn't that make sense?
Well, and
Oh,
not necessarily, because in fairness, they're also tied up with FinCom right now in the budget and it might not be on their radar. They might be waiting to see if anyone else thinks it's a good idea before they stick their neck out and say, yes, we want to do this. Is someone else, does another committee think that this, or another group think that this is a reasonable thing to do?
Yeah, I think Mike, they're waiting for feedback. That's what I've heard at least. They want to know if the planning board, the RDIC, and the Ag Commission thinks that it's a good idea. And I know the planning board, as of last night, is sending a letter to the select board saying, yes, we think it's a good idea to move forward with your appraisal.
So when you say an appraisal, what we're really talking about then is an appraisal for, I don't remember how many, 30 something A&R lots along the roadway.
Well, I'm not sure how that works out because again, that's for the appraisal person because yes, there's 22 A&R lots at this point that's been given to that property. That's the discussion point that hasn't happened yet.
I guess
I'm getting off topic. So yes, I'm not sure if it's the A&R lots or if it's the chapter 61A lots that'll be appraised. I don't know. My understanding based on the letter I got today from David is that the A&R lots were legitimate in the conversion. So, I don't know what they appraise. That's not my bailiwick. Do they appraise the A&R lots or do they appraise the 61A lots? I don't know.
Well, no, obviously they're going to appraise them as A&R lots.
Why
It
is that?
says, it says in the
because-
letter that it's block C parcel 1.
Yeah, that's the letter. The letter basically says there's 2 parcels that are being converted. So that's the reason why I'm struggling with the A&Rs. But again, I think that's out of our bailiwick. It's more of, does the RDIC take an interest for development in it or not?
Yeah.
So that I don't think the
So I get, but back to the appraisal aspect of it. They're certainly not going to appraise them as 61A because they're being taken out of 61A. That's the whole purpose
but
of.
it has not been taken out yet.
No, well, I understand, but ultimately, the value of the land is based on them being out of 61A, the fair market value. So if there's whatever, let's just say there's 30 house lots there, and again, I'm just gonna throw a number of $100,000 because it's an easy multiplier. Take that multiplier, is the town gonna come up with $3 million to buy that land?
Well, my next question is the first thing I'm going to tell the town is whoever's doing the appraisal, I want to see all the perk tests because I
Yeah.
don't believe half those properties perk that's been
correct.
brought in as A&Rs. So that's, I mean, to get down to the dirty details, if the town's going to get into the dirty details for this appraisal, then I know I'm going to ask a lot of questions because it's a known fact that properties on the other side of Ridge Road don't perk. How they perk on this side, good question. So, you know, that's stuff that if we want to get into the details of this, I believe there's some shenanigans going on and I'm not in the mood to take them anymore. I'm tired of shenanigans in Rutland. I'm done with it.
And I'm tired because Rutland had it at 61A, reduced in taxes for umpteen years, and to turn around now, we have to give them, you know, a huge chunk of change. No way in heck. That thing is under 61A when they come through with the A&R, and that was wrong. I don't give a sweet hoot, but that's my opinion, and screw the rest of it.
But I don't understand what you mean. We have to give them a whole chunk of change. What does that mean?
Well, I mean, the valuations, does the property perk? So is it a true property that can be sold? So is it worth $40,000 to $100,000 or is it just a piece of property? I don't know that. I don't know that. And secondly, one of the roads there that supposedly the A&R on is a dirt trail. What's that piece of property worth living off a dirt trail? I don't think it's worth what you know a typical A&R is. It doesn't have any water, doesn't have any sewer. It's on the way outside of town. So I don't know. That's part of the appraisal process of what it comes back. I mean, you're right. It could come back at $100,000 a piece and the town can't afford it. But if you don't ask, you don't know. If you don't try, you don't know.
Well, I'm going to plead ignorance on this conversion because I don't understand it. It's the first I've ever heard of it. Any other A&R property that we've looked at has come with a purchase and sale agreement attached to the application, and it says that Mike Sullivan is going to buy these 30 lots and he's going to pay $60 bazillion for it.
And that didn't.
Okay, Tom, are you interested in buying this property?
And it didn't come that way, Mike. That's not how I've literally got the letter here. It's basically just saying we're in a conversion process. The planning board has approved 22 lots of A&R. We're putting you on notice that we're converting it from 61A. No price, no nothing, Mike.
No, I've got it too. I've got it. Well, okay, here's where I have heartburn. As the chairman of the committee, you guys are going to ask me to send a letter to the Board of Selectmen saying something. I don't know what to write. I mean, I can write the RDIC. I don't know how to write that the RDIC has interest in the property because we don't have any money to buy it. I mean, and secondly, what is our interest? What are we going to do with it? What, you know, if I were to be sitting on the receiving end of that, I'd go, yeah, okay, you know, they just want to preserve the land for something at a later date. What is it? You know, what are they going to do with it? When are they going to do it?
Well, for the time being, they can turn around and lease it back to Mr. Mason for sap and Randy Jordan for corn. We could put trails down there. We could do other things with it for the time being. You could try to bring in some
Revenue.
But that's never going to be anywhere near the fair market value of house lots, Dick. You know that.
I know that, for crying out loud, but you know, there are other things that can happen. We could probably, if the land does perk, maybe we can have 3 or 4 low-income houses built there. Heaven only knows we need that in this town.
Well, how are you going to do that all of a sudden, Dick? We don't have any regulation that requires, you know, low-income housing.
No, you don't, but you have, it's supposed to be up to 10%, and where the heck are we?
Nowhere close.
I don't
We're
disagree.
close, 1.8 or something like that.
But I think, but that could justify our buying it, Mike, right? Is because we could actively seek someone to build either mixed use or low income to help us meet our 10%. And I think that that would be a legitimate reason, at least for part of it. Or we, you know, if we're, or we could try to do something bigger with the bigger parcel. And I think while we don't necessarily have a plan right this minute, I'm sure that we could develop plans and we could have some, we would need time to have some discussion about what we could do with it. But I think the point is that we can say, we have a lot of ideas. There's no specific plan put forward, but we have a lot of ideas for why this town would be of use to the town.
All right, give me 1, 2, 3 ideas.
For in terms of like industrial development, I think someone talked about like the Woosocks or someone coming in and using a big parcel, even the bus companies or somebody like that, like for stuff that you could put there industrial wise, that's not necessarily going to be chewing up resources like what town water, town sewer, and schools.
Perfect
Didn't
idea.
the town
because-
go through the whole gyration with the Woosocks, and they came up and they looked at all the parcels in town, and you know, nothing's happened in 3 years other than, you know.
Yeah,
Mike's
but
through
this
the
parcel
Woosocks.
wasn't available at the time, right? But maybe we could do something with this parcel to make it, to market it to, like, I think it'd be our job to market it, right? We'd have to figure out what we could do with it and market it. But we have to have it before we can figure out what we could do with it.
Michelle, think about what we're saying, you know, and again, I feel like I'm arguing a point with my own committee, and I don't want to do that, but you're saying, you know, come up with a plan to develop the parcel. I mean, it took us 20 years to develop a piece of property in the center of town with water and sewer, and we're gonna do it, you know, 5 miles away from the town center.
Michelle just had the brightest idea of them all, Mike. Come on. Have you
Well-
seen how tight parking is for those school buses down there? My God, that'd be an ideal spot for them. And the town is only going to grow. It's going to need more buses.
All right, look, I think we've
Doggone right. My blood pressure's going up.
oh, don't let that happen, Dick. I think we've exhausted this discussion. I guess if someone wants to make a motion, we can vote on it. The one thing I'm gonna ask of you, though, is as the chairman of this committee, I have no clue if we vote favorably on this, what I'm gonna write to the Board of Selectmen.
Mike, I would just write that the RDIC has interest. Please proceed with conversion process of obtaining an appraisal and forward to myself when you got it.
And what's
I
the
think it's
interest?
as simple as that.
What's
really
the
do.
interest?
You mean,
You said the RDIC has interest.
Yeah.
If I'm on the receiving end of that, I'm gonna say, okay, what's the interest? And we're gonna say, well, you know, it's a 30-acre parcel. We think, you know, in the future, we might be able to use it.
yeah, because
Yeah.
my argument's gonna be, if the select board asks that, I guess I'm gonna come back and say, yes, we will come up with an interest, but we can't do that in one meeting or even in 2
Right.
meetings. It's not been done in this town for anything inside of a month.
We
So-
couldn't do it in 20 years in the center of town.
I get it. So it's gonna take time. But my point is, if we don't try, we don't know. And
Right.
if this passes up, maybe you're right. Maybe this comes back as 3 million. It's completely out of our bailiwick, and then great. But at least we gave it a shot on
Yeah.
a 50-acre swath of property. You know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll leave it up. I guess I've said everything. I don't know what else, because with this conversion, it's not entering into negotiations to buy it, because they got to have the appraisal first. So
maybe that's what we say. We say that the RDIC is interested in continuing this process to
an
evaluate the
appraisal?
property, to determine what it would cost for the town to purchase it. So that we could
And then
investigate future developmental opportunities and leave it at that.
and then we could come up with a decision if we want to move forward once we get there. I don't know. Michelle, you got a
Right.
good
we're not on the hook. They're not asking us to put in a purchase and sale. They're asking us to say, are we interested in it? And I think we should be interested. So if we leave it open, yes, we're interested. We want to know how much it would cost. And then if it costs too much, we go back and say, yeah, that's too much. We don't want to do it.
Thanks, but no thanks.
But I think that's along the right lines of at least asking and finding out for sure exactly what it would be appraised at. And maybe in the meantime, we come up with a list of ideas and have another meeting to discuss different ideas we would do with it if we did get it.
And maybe I missed it, but tell me why, again, an appraisal is required when a purchase and sale.
Because there is no purchase and sale.
Because, Mike, there is no purchase and sale because the owner is converting the property. He's not selling it. So think of it as, say your property that you own right now is 61A and you might want to do something with it. Well, it's on you to convert it from 61A to residential to A&R and pay the back taxes. The procedure to do that is you to get an appraisal, or basically the first step is to tell the town you're going to do it. And then the process from that is, that's what I've asked a question on. I think there's a public hearing that needs to be held. I'm not sure. But the next physical step is, outside of the public hearing, is to get an appraisal of the property, present that to the landowner, which would be you in this example. You have an appraisal probably already done on the property. You look at them and say, oh, these are way far apart. You go back to the town and say, nah, you're off. What are we going to do? And then the next portion is, if I read the Mass General Law, is a third party comes in and does an appraisal between the two appraisals and find out which one is fair. So there's a whole process that has to take place this 120 days to come up with a quote fair price, fair market price to sell if the town wants to purchase. So it's a completely different process than taking it out of 61A. Say if yourself or Jimmy or Michelle or Dick want to buy the property and you have a P&S on file right now with 61A. So it's a little bit of a different process. And again, I'm not 100% that I know exactly everything about it, because I've just spent the last 2 weeks trying to read up on it and learn and ask questions.
That
But
sounds
it's
right.
like what we're saying is that if you convert it, it theoretically is worth a heck of a lot less than if you sell it.
Could be. It could be.
That just doesn't make sense to me. That's okay. All right, I'm done. I'll do whatever the board wishes.
So what is the negative part if we ask to have it looked at? What do we lose?
I don't think anything, Bonnie. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I agree.
Probably the cost of the appraisal.
Well, if the planning board's already told the select board that they should get the appraisal, so they've got one of 4 committees already saying yes.
Yeah, because
So, I'm sorry, go ahead.
the owner has to pay some back taxes.
Correct.
What year
Year's
are
worth.
they in?
It ends in October for him.
Okay,
So he owes 5-year back taxes.
all right. So I don't think there's any harm in requesting an appraisal. It has to be done anyway.
The only downside, Bonnie, is the town has to pay for this appraisal. It's not the owner. The owner has to pay for his own appraisal. The town has to pay for this appraisal. So the only downside is there'll be costs coming out of the town to pay for the appraisal.
There'll be some legal costs in that too, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm not sure about that, Jimmy, because unfortunately, from what I've seen, the owner doesn't have an attorney. Every document that's been sent has been signed by the owner, not by an attorney. So I was curious about that myself.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I doubt that.
No, but I do think that I do think it's worth it to the town to at least get it appraised from our perspective for what it's worth. Even if it's just to get the 5 years of back taxes or whatever the taxes are.
So, Mike, do you need a motion or is that what?
I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion that we request the town to appraise the property. At
And send it-
42, the conversion of the chapter 61 land at 42 Ridge Road in Rutland, Massachusetts, for the 2 parcels, which are, I think they're blocks C and D, but it's in this email.
Well, you can just reference the application by,
Reference the application and for the use to be determined.
I'll second that.
any further discussion? All in favor, roll call?
Dick Williams, aye.
Michelle Van Ree, aye.
Jim Susi, no, I'm sorry.
Narwhal, aye.
Bonnie, I.
Well, on the protest, not on the protest, just to show unity of the board, I vote aye. I think it's a waste of time and I don't agree with it, but I think we should try to stick together, so.
Well, just this last night, Joe Buckley was looking about new water source for the town of Rutland, so maybe we just found it for him.
And Jim, I didn't mean for that comment to be, in any way directed at your vote. It's just, I mean, the vote is what it is, so.
That's fine. I have no problem. I just think you're wasting your time. I don't think the town
I
can
do
afford
too.
it. I know it's gonna come up at a very high appraisal and there's no way the town's gonna be able to afford this. That's my opinion. So,
I agree with that, but it's okay.
Me too.
That's what the committee is for.
no problem.
Okay, any other discussion on 61A? Okay. Harbor Classic Homes update.
Excuse me, Mike, could I just cut in real quick?
Sure.
I have a master plan steering committee at 7 o'clock, so I'm gonna have to jump off this call. But
Sorry, Dave, we should have
I
taken
trust
that.
that you can provide the board a great update on the status of Harbor Classic Homes, our bi-weekly meetings, and the expectations that we have with Harbor Classic Homes to further its plan set and all those things.
So why don't you take, sorry, Dave, I wish you had mentioned that. We could have taken it out of order. Why don't you just take a minute or two before you leave and give your thoughts on Harbor Classic Homes?
Well, as Mike will tell you in further detail, the town staff, the planning office and Mike Sullivan as the chair of the RDIC have been having a meeting every other week with Harbor Classic Homes, sometimes even more frequently. For example, we met with them for 2 consecutive weeks and we'll be meeting with them next week. So I think that has engendered some trust. They do have an attorney involved. They have changed their engineering firm. Changing the engineering firm was of great value because it shows a great commitment on their behalf. So we do see some movement and some progress as they develop their plan set. What they needed to do was confirm the prior engineering firm's plan set, and from there, get comfort that they understand the project, and then from that point, design a further plan set, which is a comprehensive plan showing utilities, topography, building a location, water and sewer locations, et cetera. So the full plan set seems to be under development. They seem to have a serious commitment to this project. And they are probably sick of meeting with us every other week, but as Mike will tell you, it's been very, very useful for them to know that we have not forgotten this and that it's of the highest priority for the town. So that's my brief update in a nutshell. Mike, is all that accurate as far as you
Yeah,
can tell?
it is. Let's just, before you run away, let's just confirm dates. So this coming Tuesday, we are going to have a stamped definitive plan, correct?
That's correct.
2 weeks after that, we are going to have applications filed with all appropriate boards and commissions that are required, Concom, Planning Board, DCR, whatever. That's all going to be done. correct?
That's what I understand, that they have their permitting paperwork and process ready to go once these plans have been developed. That's what I understand as well, Mike, yep.
So that in addition to what they, so we got a preliminary peek at the definitive plan on Tuesday, which was really not a lot different than what you folks have seen before. In fact, it probably wasn't different at all. Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome, Mike. So I'm gonna jump
Thank you.
off. Have a
Yep.
good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Take
you
care.
too.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So, just to kind of, I don't have a lot more to say beyond that. We have been meeting with them, on a bi-weekly basis, and now 2 weeks in a row, and it's gonna be 3 weeks in a row. The one thing I will tell you that I've been most impressed with is they have met every single commitment they said they'd make. When they say they're gonna have something done on a date, it's done. So I anticipate for sure at our meeting on Tuesday, we will have a stamped definitive plan. And then the schedule we put together for filing of, applications and permits, which is then going to give us a better idea, I believe, of an end date.
Mike,
Yes,
is the HPDD going to, in parallel, be reviewing the definitive plan?
yes. So my thought is, and we talked about this, our thought is that the definitive plan will be submitted to us next Tuesday. At the same time, we will submit it to Quinn Engineering for their beginning of their analysis. I have been, to be honest with you, I meant last week and this week to get with Chris Senecal and include him in this timeline. I would expect that Chris is probably going to set up a meeting very quickly after our next Tuesday meeting, so that we can, you can see what the definitive plan looks like, make sure there are no issues. The only open issue to me is their plan. Now, we met only with the engineer on this past Tuesday. There was not an HCH representative. He said that HCH asked him to design the second entrance, in other words, the one that goes to the left off the Y, as an emergency exit, a 20-foot wide emergency exit. I have said to him, look, I don't think that's what we should be doing. I think that should be an honest to God entrance and exit, 24 feet wide. So I would like for you after this meeting to go back and discuss that with them so that we can put that to bed at our meeting on Tuesday. And, Tim and Dick and who else is a member? Michelle. The one thing I've tried to be absolutely super crystal clear with them and with Dave and with Campabasso on is I've attempted diligently to not step in the HPDD review board's area of responsibilities. So I just don't want at any time the review board to say, oh, Mike made that decision and we should have done that. I don't want that to happen, and I've just tried and I think I've done a good job of it. So that's why I want to get with Chris, and when this thing goes to Quinn, I think you folks should be looking at it at the same time and say, yep, in general, that looks good. Let's see what Quinn comes back with, or you know what? I don't know what it's.
No, Mike,
I'll tell you what, being on the planning board, I will reject it in my opinion, because it's, you have to have an access. And I don't mean an emergency one, I mean a good access. And I agree with you, it should be wide open, 24 foot.
And we were very clear about that expectation in the
Yeah.
HPDD review. We were very clear about that.
yeah, I was gonna say, Mike, you've said nothing to them that I haven't listened on the HPD, that they were adamantly saying that we want a second, maybe not full-time exit, but we want a second egress from the property. So I don't think you've been out of school by saying that to their design team.
No, they absolutely, well, let's just back up a little bit. They're still including the double barrel roadway up top, but also the second access down at the, I don't
The
know.
dump road.
Yeah, down near the dump road. Good
Yeah.
description. Yep.
But you said something about partial access, but it shouldn't be partial. There should not be a gate or anything.
Right. What they were told, what he was told was it was going to be emergency access. And I said, no, that's not what we want. And so let me just go on a little further. So I said to him, all right, look, let's forget the fact that the owners have said it's an emergency access, maybe whatever. I'll take the blame and say we didn't explain that clearly enough. I think we did, but I'm just going to say that. If from an engineering standpoint, the question I asked him was, from an engineering standpoint, is there a reason that cannot be a 24-foot road rather than a 20-foot road? He said, absolutely not. Makes no difference to me how wide it is. The only question is, will we get any more flack from DCR or MEPA or whoever else may have to look at it if it's 24 feet rather than 20 feet. And in his opinion, he doesn't feel as though that's true. So I'm expecting that the owners are going to come back and say, yep, okay, fine. That should be a second access.
Good.
So I wish I could tell you more than that, but I can tell you that this engineering firm is, I almost just said something that would have been a little vulgar. But they're top notch as far as I'm concerned. Their commitment, their openness. At one point, the attorney suggested it wasn't necessary that we meet every 2 weeks because basically, they were doing engineering stuff and they didn't have anything to show us. And the program manager or whatever, who's a partner of the engineering firm, said, no, I like this. He said, the more we talk, the better it's going to be. The more information we exchange, the better it's going to be. Let's keep doing this every 2 weeks. So I was quite pleased with that as well.
Mike, do you think, and I know I'm asking, look into a crystal ball, do you think we'll be closed and blessed on this before the end of June?
I wish you could take your finance hat off occasionally.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, she's not here right now, so I can't get in trouble.
The answer to the question is, I think it's reasonable to assume in midsummer, we will close as long as the second means of egress does not get tied up with DCR and any other state agency.
Okay.
I believe everything else we can handle. Concom has already done their, they already looked for the solar and we know where all the wetlands are and all of that. The detention ponds are all positioned, and I mean, I'm just assuming these guys know how to design detention ponds.
Yep.
For the life of me, I can't understand why any agency would say, okay, currently there's, pick a number, there's got to be 3,000-4,000 feet of paved roadway up there, even though, it's not pretty looking, it's still all paved. And you guys are going to eliminate all of that. And you're asking us to give you basically whatever, 1,000 feet of roadway in place of it. How can they say no to that? Now, obviously they can, but does it make any sense? I don't think so. Jim, you're kind of in that business. What's your thoughts?
What was the question? I'm sorry.
Yeah, never mind. It's not a fair question. Yeah, it's not a fair question to ask you. Put your gin and tonic down, Jim.
No, do you think DCR is going to give us a hard time about a 24-foot roadway rather than a 20-foot
putting
roadway?
him on the spot as a business.
No, it's a 24 and 20. It's not a big. It's a lot, but it's not a deal breaker. I wouldn't think.
Mike, are we intending, I know we talked about, I can't think of my good buddy that's retired from the DCR that we were going to get as a consultant.
Jeff Lacy.
Jeff Lacy.
Jeff Lacy, I love that man. He always used to fight with developers in town.
Didn't he move to Vermont?
No,
But is there any thought of that, or are we leaving that in Harbor Classic Homes bailiwick?
I can tell you exactly where he lives, Dick. I visited his house about 2 months ago to discuss this very project. So the answer to your question is, he is a consultant now. He has offered his services to us. I have made that known to HCH and their attorneys. There's some discussion about, they feel as though in the Leominster area, they've got some pretty good contacts of their own, so they don't know that it's necessary. So the answer to your question is, I don't know.
All right, no. They're a big engineering company, so I'm sure they've dealt with environmental issues, so they've probably got staff and people that can deal with it. So
Yeah, I mean, it's my ignorant opinion, and I mean that literally, that it would be better received from the town asking for this than from a developer.
yeah,
Yeah.
And I have made that thought clear. So I guess I don't know how to answer your question any better than that, Tim. You know, to me, the two priority items we have right now are, number one, get the plan in, get the applications in, and immediately get HCH in front of the planning board to establish the A&R of the lot, which should be, a 15-minute discussion, in my opinion. And then secondly, the second order of business is to go to work on getting that portion of it under control.
okay, good.
I
Right?
have a logistical question. Why would it not come back to HPDD before it goes out to everybody else?
Well, we talked about that as well, Michelle. From the standpoint, it ultimately has to go to Quinn Engineering anyway. So why wait, whatever it is, a week or 2 weeks for you guys to schedule a meeting, talk about it, let them look at it, and maybe, the first 10 minutes they look at it, they go, whoa, what's up with this? This is no good. So we kind of thought it would be best to do it as a parallel path.
Okay,
Do you see a negative to it?
When is Jim
Well-
coming back?
pardon?
When is Jim coming back from Florida?
Well,
Not
I
soon,
guess
not
the only
soon.
problem I have is, what if Quinn says something is okay, but it's like, especially about that second egress, but if HPDD, if we're not aligned, I guess that's my concern.
Well, that's the only open issue in my mind, is the second means of egress.
Okay,
And
and you've clearly stated that you know how we feel
it'll be
about it,
even
so,
more clearly stated this coming Tuesday.
okay.
Hey, Jim, if I read your email rightly, you're semi-retired, right?
That's right.
So you
Yeah,
can be in Florida and drink as much as you want.
That's correct.
You stay away from the Tanqueray.
Good for you.
I'm guessing this is a business trip and you're down there looking for vinyl siding for your last building that I still.
That's correct too.
All right, so anybody have any other questions on HCH? Okay. Any older new business?
No,
Okay,
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
now second that. Bonnie, you can, yes.
any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Van
Aye.
Ree, aye.
Susie,
Bye. 7:10. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, and I, unanimous. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate
Yeah, good
the,
night.
Take care.
have a good night.